Good evening. I'm going to call this meeting to order. This is a meeting of the Gloucester School Committee's Building and Finance Subcommittee. Today is Tuesday, January 23rd, 2024. The time is 5:05 p.m. We are meeting here in person at the Gloucester High School Library, 32 Leslie O. Johnson Road in Gloucester, Mass. All our meetings are recorded. Effective August 16th, 2023, the public is welcome to attend in person. Alternatively, the public may attend through the Zoom link listed on the agenda. Meeting notice will reflect if the meeting is Zoom only. As the recent amendments to the open meeting allows, the subcommittee may continue to hold meetings remotely. Please note the in-person meeting will not be suspended or terminated if technological problems interrupt the remote connection. We will start with introductions and we'll start on this side.
Ben Lummis, Superintendent.
Amy Pasquarello, Assistant Superintendent.
Gary Frisch, CFO.
Stephanie Frontier, Director of Finance.
Kathy Clancy, School Committee member.
Melissa Prince, School Committee.
Bill Melvin, School Committee.
Michael Titus, Principal of O'Malley Middle School.
James Cook, Principal of Gloucester High School.
Welcome, everyone.
Thank you.
First order of business, O'Malley Middle School Budget Priority Presentation.
Okay, well, I'm going to start with a few intro slides like I had the last couple times. Also, wasn't a change in the agenda. We updated it, it was yesterday because to take off the English language education priority presentation because the school committee is getting a full presentation on English language education tomorrow. And that would have been redundant and inefficient. So let me just go through, oops, what happened there? Some introduction slides. And while the committee members have seen this before, other folks and the public have not may not have. So, okay, here we go. So tonight we'll have budget priority presentations from O'Malley Middle School. Principal Mike Titus is here, and then also Gloucester High School, Principal James Cook is here. So just as a reminder to folks, our guiding principles for the FY25 budget development are, first of all, that it's aligned with the Gloucester Public Schools 3-year plan for ongoing improvement. Reminder of those 4 priorities that all our schools are working on is deepen student belonging and engagement, strengthen instruction and better connect general education and special education, strengthen social emotional learning and mental health support, and strengthen special education through improved coordination of services and specialized instruction. So I always want to build our school and district budgets in alignment with the plan for ongoing improvement. Building a budget based on the current fiscal realities. So some real changes are happening over the last couple of years and also this year. First and foremost, there's a significant increase in out-of-district tuition rates and special education costs, both last year and this year. Those continue. And the state budget is shifting and quite a bit different the past couple of years. We expect as possible reduction in state aid from previous years, and also the end of COVID relief funding as well. And then we want to build a budget based on the current program realities. And that's a couple examples here are the increased students with complex needs, especially learning and social emotional needs. And also we want to continue our investments in O'Malley as well. So those are a couple of examples of programming that we want to make sure we continue investing in. Just a couple of changes in on the budget calendar. So we made an update here. So February 14th, the budget presentation will go first to the full school committee instead of coming to BNF first. That's really a scheduling, just a scheduling change. It has some scheduling complications there. And so then we don't need the February 28th budget proposal presentation, which was going to be the original to the full school committee. So we're going to move that up a couple of weeks. That's the only change. Otherwise, we go as we typically do. A public hearing in April for on the school committee budget, and then sorry, that's in early May, and then after the school committee approves its budget towards the end of May, it goes to through the mayor to the city council. They have a public hearing, and then they vote out in June, and it comes back for a final vote from the school committee at the end of June. In terms of we're making sure that the public and members of the public can access our budget documents very easily. So our finance and operations webpage, there's a link down below, and also that's clickable too for the packet. Has a budget calendar. Have all these budget presentations, the draft budgets, and also prior year's budgets, so people can get access to those easily. February 14th, district budget, that's when we'll see numbers for the first time, so draft budget total for FY 25, anticipate significant changes, and then some specific offsets out of just tuition and circuit breaker, we'll get update on those, and also get an update on any federal and state grant adjustments we expect as well. But for tonight, and we did the last couple of weeks, we'll focus on budget priorities presentations. These are really the foundation of where we are building our budget from. You'll hear from both O'Malley and Gloucester High about their areas of strength, their priorities for this upcoming school year, the work they're already doing on their priorities, because most of our priorities continue from year to year rather than thinking of new ones every year. And then the work that they expect to be working on to further strengthen their priorities in the coming year as well. So without further, just as a reminder, the budget priorities presentation don't have a lot of numbers in them, dollars and cents in them. But they're really the launch of the public component of the budget development process. Update the committee on the budget work being done so far. And then also provide the committee and the public really the basis for what we will build the FY 2025 budget from. And really to highlight the connections between the GPS plan for ongoing improvement and our work to strengthen our priorities. All the work our schools are doing. So I will pass it along. I'll stop.
Actually, I have a security thing that's not letting me share my screen,
so
but I
I
just
can-
emailed you a link.
Yeah,
If
that's okay.
if you could present.
Yeah, I can do it. Yep,
I'll talk to IT about that for next time.
there we go.
Great, thank you, everybody. Glad to be here. So, we're gonna hit those four main categories that Superintendent Lomas was discussing, just quick little, in line with some of our, work from last year and that we're carrying through. We've got a nice picture there, some of our students, planting a tree at O'Malley that was done, in partnership with the health department through O'Malley Academy. They had a fun day with it, and over the years, that'll grow into a nice, some extra shade for the kids, so.
And that is not Gary Frisch, correct?
It's not,
Okay,
no.
just want to squelch any rumors here, okay?
Just so some areas of strength, obviously, I was told by a member of the community recently that I can say for the first year, I'm new to O'Malley. I get 1 year to say that, but these are some things that I've really noticed in my time here that I think are strengths that we can really build from. The student opportunity at O'Malley is quite exceptional between O'Malley Academy, working with ADL for their world peer events. We recently worked with the health department for a meeting in a box to get students to bring some of their voice to the community. We're working on Project Adventure. They have a Washington DC trip. So this is something, it's at the core, and I feel part of, it's an essential part of the middle school experience where kids at this age are really kind of finding their people and what they're interested in. So we want to make sure we focus on that moving forward. We've done, there's been a lot of work that to walk into high quality instructional materials listed there, just, the work that's been presented here, but 3 different curriculum reviews at various stages of implementation. And this year we were able to work with Amy Pasquarella to get a social studies program leader. And, they're doing some work looking at the new state curriculum that's being handed down. Social studies is a little bit different space than the other subjects just because of the state's involvement in it with their frameworks. But so that's been some great stuff. Just the fact that throughout everything, O'Malley has maintained the middle school model. That is a specific structure to a school, along with scheduling different than a junior high. And that is, we'll talk a little bit more about how that's really in line with both increasing student engagement, focusing on the social emotional needs of students. But basically when we say the middle school model, we're talking about the house system that we have, where students are used to coming from a small elementary, and this might be their first foray into a very large building. And they spend the majority of their day with 4 teachers in one wing of the building, where those teachers get to collaborate. So that's a big strength. Not everybody holds on to that, unfortunately. Just the work that's been built up with some additions to the administrative instructional team. We now have program leaders at all four subjects, which allows us to push work forward. Today we had our vertical team meetings. Those are all being run by teacher leaders and moving that work forward. The addition of our curriculum coordinator position, we're doing a lot of work with curriculum, more than we probably would have bandwidth for without that position. And we now have looping grade level student support teams, meaning that you have a full assistant principal, adjustment counselor and guidance counselor for every grade. So these are just really lays a strong foundation for us to continue to move the work forward. So, yeah, so our priorities come right from our school improvement plan, student engagement, making sure that we've got exciting opportunities and reasons for middle schools to want to show up and be there. As I mentioned on the first slide, I think that's a strength that we have, but we need to continue to develop that. Improving tier one instruction, I think we've got an instructional focus that is helping to drive our work, but we're trying to implement that as well as do the technical piece of the curriculum reviews. So, we want to make sure that we're still investing in aligning those priorities and investing in the materials that are needed to do those as well. And professional collaboration, again, this is going to allow them to focus on both academics, instruction, and the social emotional needs due to the middle school model that we have. That doesn't get relegated to just our student support. That is more of a holistic approach for all the adults involved in the student's day. So we want to keep those at sort of the center of what we're doing.
Michael, quick interruption, and maybe off track a little bit. You made the statement, not everyone holds on to that with regards to I'm assuming the house model.
Yeah.
And what's your thought? I mean, snapshot that for me.
Yeah, sure. So
Do you think the house model is the best model or
for the age, I think it is.
Yeah.
I could see a world in which we have more of a sort of a transitional year in the 8th grade, where maybe you have some more movement. But what we need to recognize is that there's a high level of executive functioning to navigate a schedule in a building that size. And middle school kids need to know who their people are, who's my go-to. And so when you start asking a kid to kind of go all over a building, and you don't have adults that can catch the kids looking through the cracks at this age, I've had some experience with that more junior high model, and I don't feel it's as supportive of the students and what they need right now at that age.
Thanks.
Especially thinking about O'Malley, it being, such a sort of a flat building
Yeah.
where classes, if you went to a more of a junior high model, which really it's a high school model, kids may be going all over the building from class to class instead of having a vast majority of their classes in one small cluster area.
Yeah.
Feedback I've gotten for, over a decade now that I've been in middle schools is, especially from 6th grade parents, they're so afraid of their kids going to the middle school, the 6th transition, until they see that house
Yeah.
system in place and they go, oh, they're not trying to figure out this huge building all by themselves. They're really staying here. Every teacher in that wing knows who they are by name. And it's a big relief for them. It's a big relief for the kids.
Yeah.
And unlike other buildings, that school was designed for the house.
It really was, yeah,
Right,
yeah.
and back in 2008, when I got on the committee, one of our first decisions were, are we closing O'Malley or are we closing Fuller? Whatever school we close, the opposite would be housed
Yeah.
O'Malley. And one of the reasons we kept O'Malley, one, because it was in better condition, but two, it's because of the system that it has built in.
Yeah.
I can't imagine not having a house system in that school. It would be crazy
Yeah.
to try to figure out. So that's helpful for us.
So again, the work we're already doing, student engagement, we kind of went over some of these, some other additional things that I added in there. We've built in community meeting time for the houses to come together as a whole house, either with a guidance counselor, an administrator, or sometimes it's led by the team of teachers. It's a small scale way to do some celebrations, acknowledge student accomplishments. The advisory block is sort of a tier 1 social emotional learning block, in that, it is a chance for non-academic time with their homeroom teacher to discuss our core values of sales. That's where we can deliver our anti-bullying curriculum and things like that. So that's just a chance for students to find another way to connect with some of their core teachers. And our sales council is a student-led council where they give a lot of input on activities in the school and things we may want to do, and act as kind of a liaison from students in their homeroom to voicing, just things they'd like to see from the school to the adults. and so that, so those are all sort of pieces that work towards that. Tier 1 instruction, again, specifically amplifying ELA, we've decided on Desmos for math. They just finished up their curriculum review a few weeks ago. We're working really collaboratively with GEF for continuing to build out the science center. Just recently at our PTO meeting, one of the PTO parents was sharing that their older student who's at the high school now is taking advanced placement in CAD courses, which they got hooked in at, the 3D printing lab in O'Malley. So something that, is kind of, we hope sparking lifelong learning, right, and hands-on learning. And then the social studies program there helps us as well. Professional collaboration, some of the things that the house model allows us to do, the middle school model, is create a schedule with embedded collaboration time that you do a little bit harder if kids are kind of going at different times. So I mentioned earlier in the presentation part of the team meetings we had today, that's an after-school faculty time where the whole grade level, the whole department across grades gets to meet. But we have, and within our 6-day rotation, there's a grade level planning meeting. We have program leaders. We also have there's also what we call an SRT, which is more of a social emotional focus of that. So if a student's struggling, maybe we're noticing a student's withdrawing, maybe we notice that a student seems to have a conflict, as a place for teachers to come to collaborate, loop in guidance, and everybody, again, that idea of kind of a wraparound of all the adults that the students engaging with in the building are on the same page with that. Our ILT is, right now we're focusing on data and making a kind of a needs-based assessment of our schedule. It's older version of it's an updated old version of a middle school schedule. So what we're doing right now is taking a look at some other models and saying, we have some changing demographics. Our ELO population is increasing. As Superintendent Lummis noted at the beginning of the presentation, there are some complexities with our special education needs that we need to be flexible with. So we're trying to think, what are the necessary adjustments to that model, to that schedule that we need to make that improve student services and allow for all the other priorities to stay. That's that. So continue strengthening them. So the first two are kind of just continuing some of the work that we have there for student engagement. We also, one thing that I'm going to be focusing on is trying to figure out how to fold some O'Malley Academy funding into my local budget. The way that those 21C grants are designed is they sunset every 3 years by $20,000, with the expectation that we are figuring out how to supplement that and support it within the building. So that's just something that we're doing because it is such a key piece of what makes O'Malley special.
Is this one of the years where?
So the most recent, we were awarded again this year, and this year we're operating at $20,000 less than we were the last 3 years. I think my understanding is since we first got the grant, our funding's down, I think $80,000. Yeah. So I feel it's a responsibility to maintain that. We have to start being proactive instead of trying to find funds moving forward. So. We've been doing some work with the health department across various areas, but I want to continue to explore community partnerships and what that can bring in for our students, because there's some great, the Y has had some great impact on the kids. The Philosophy Youth Leadership Council is really effective, so we want to explore that. We're continuing to look at our special education models and programming. Those first two, again, are sort of some continuing things that we just need to keep our eye on the prize with that. But also thinking about how does our programming align with what's happening at the needs of the elementary upcoming, and again, leveraging our new structures that we have with this grade level student support teams to, figure out how to utilize those teams more effectively throughout the day. And the professional collaboration, we have a lot of, I think, some good foundational work in place. I would like to continue us to refine our data team protocols. We do have data teams that meet somewhat regularly, but I'd like that to become a little bit more uniform across all of our content areas and be a little bit more responsive and rapid. But that's a practice that takes a long time to build. And, you know, right now we have a lot of support. We do some surveys for our students, which allows our student support teams to, you know, address and do interventions. But again, I want to kind of be more responsive in that we have some shorter tier 2 interventions, small group interventions where, you know, we have some students with some aligned needs. We do a brief intervention. We have kind of entry exit criteria to move that forward because, you know, I think we have the structure to do that now. Yeah.
I have a question. So what does the data team meeting look like for social studies? What data are they looking at?
So that's,
You know,
so
'cause
that's.
I know all of our benchmarks in the LA and at math are really.
So, yeah, so that's an area where we're still trying to build that out right now. You know, math and ELA are the 2 data teams that meet. I think at the age level, there's a huge help in the ELA data team with social studies in that it's a big focus on literacy. But that is some of the work that still needs to be done with, as we go through that curriculum work, right? One of the benefits we have right now is with the curriculum sort of settled in ELA and math, we don't, it's less about, well, what materials are people using? And now we can focus really on, you know, instructional strategies that we want to focus on and where student need actually is. So it is, you know, we have, like I said, we have a good foundation for it and we have some nice protocols, but it is something that we still need to continue to work on and build out.
And so do those other subject areas participate in data meetings sometimes?
No, in that what action plans that might come out of that can be shared at those other collaborative meetings where they do meet as a team or meet as a house. You know, it gets shared that way. But, you know, that is something that we need to figure out how to embed that time fully.
I have a question about the meeting. These collaborative meetings, being the vertical team meetings and the data meetings, are those done all within the school day?
Nope, vertical team meetings happen after school as faculty meeting time. So we, you know.
Is it within those hours that they're required to do, or is it any extra?
No, it's part of the required.
Within the 20?
Yeah, within those 20 hours that we have, yeah, so we just dedicate, they're roughly once a month, we dedicate and say, instead of a faculty meeting, I gotta figure out whatever I need to say in an email instead of,
Right.
you know, meeting with them, but they have that time to work.
Okay.
And align things,
Excellent.
yeah.
Bill.
Because you're relatively new, we're only gonna do this about 7 times, just go up and down question. The disciplinary model, it's kind of outside of what, maybe not talking about what we're talking about tonight, but it's kind of gone from a punitive to I forget the exact word that.
More restorative.
Restorative, that's it. I mean, I don't see much, I didn't see much on that tonight, and maybe it doesn't need to be in here.
Yeah, so,
You want to talk about that?
yeah, no, I do actually, because I actually just had a great conversation with my ACE teacher who, you know, collects a lot of the data for that work. What we are seeing with both, and so the student support team does include the assistant principal, right? So there's, you know, always kind of now a conversation going back and forth with, is this, you know, is this guidance, is this discipline? Sometimes it's both, right? You know, is there work that needs to be done with the teacher, right? Looping back to them. But as we've been able to sort of solidify these teams at each grade level, we've had roughly half of the detentions assigned at this point this year than we did last year. Far fewer visits to our in-school pace room, far fewer suspensions, you know, and I do really attribute it to these teams being able to really get to know their students. You know, so at this point now, your 7th grade team and your 8th grade team have been working with these students for 2 years. It's relatively new setup, but they'll get to know them more as we continue it on. And they're able to get out in front, work with the teachers, build their capacity, get them to know the students' strengths and weaknesses and areas that they're working on up front, and it helps build the teacher capacity. It helps better meet the student needs, and you know, I do believe that when you're doing those things, especially at the middle school age, you see off-task behaviors go down. You know, there's always gonna be conflicts, right? Things happen on social media outside school, there's those things we have to react to, but we're seeing, the data is showing anyways, that the, you know, student behaviors have really started to settle a little bit, and, you know, and I just continuously remind people, I would argue that that's not due to luck, right? That is a lot of people working really hard to better meet the needs of students so that the kids feel like they belong, are having success in the curriculum, right? And just want to be there more.
Next question or another question is English language learners. I'm concerned that, you know, not concerned, but our English language learner population is obviously growing. So are we, I mean, I guess not, are there special, you know, how does that play out? I mean, English language learners are assigned to a house just like a regular student, but how is that monitored and what is that, you know, is that a concern of yours that, boy, these kids might be falling through the cracks or?
Yeah, I probably wouldn't say fall into the cracks.
Yeah.
What I would say is, that it's within our English language learner, you know, population, that in and of itself is a very diverse population.
Yeah.
Right, so, you know, you might have some students coming from urban centers, in South America, and they're coming and they've had great schooling and, you know, they're coming in and it's just a matter of language acquisition. And then you have other students that, you know, have had interruptions in their education, right? So there's multiple, things we're looking at to support them. So, you know, that, I think that's like with any student, that's bringing, you know, a complex background to the table, it's requires a lot of thought and attention. You know, a big monitoring benchmark that we have is the access test. You know, we're gonna wanna see, it's really about language acquisition, but, you know, our two English language learner teachers they know their kids, you know, really, really well. They're there to support the teachers in the houses with strategies. So I think it's something that's high on my radar, to keep an eye on. You know, but I do think that we're right now, even though the population is growing, I think we're doing a pretty good job meeting that need. But I do think I could see down the line us needing to make sure we're providing the professional learning for our staff, so it make it, as those numbers increase, what that means to really meet all those different needs as they come in.
Two positives that I love about O'Malley. I love the attendance contest there. Yeah, that's a great idea. Is it ongoing?
It is, yep, our next one's scheduled for February 2nd.
So get in the game. For
Yeah.
all the students, I like that. And the other thing, I went last year to civics. I think it was where the kids at 8th graders presented.
The Civic Access Project, yeah.
Yeah, great stuff. And one thing that I took away from this, kids that are really engaged and want to learn that, you know, civics and for lack of a better term, higher, you know, students that are just more engaged in their learning process. They're out. It seems like O'Malley does a good job of providing outlets for that, when kids that want to do that.
Yeah, well, and
Really
then,
want to push themselves.
yeah, and that was why I jumped at that opportunity, when the city reached out to the district to say, you know, we'd love to get some student voice for the meeting in a box, and you know, we kind of decided, well, we could give you access to every 8th grader, because that's their civics curriculum, and there's nothing makes more sense to me than these kids being able to voice their opinion on where they would like the city in which they live to go, right, and where they will put those priorities, so. Yeah, it's great, and you know, I've seen it in the past, and it seems like it's happened in the past, and I'm more than happy to continue those opportunities moving forward. I think it's really important. Yeah.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
The only thing I'd say to wrap up is just that, you know, Mike sort of went over the tier 1 instruction work pretty quickly. That is really complicated work. That also takes a lot of time. It's also the most important work that they could be doing. You know, this is the curriculum work you folks are well aware of, but it's also not only the curriculum doesn't only change, but instructional practices change. That's, I'm not sure, I don't have a good analogy on this. I'm sure maybe Mr. Cook does, but that's really, you're trying to change someone's way of like doing things they've been doing for a while, you know, and sometimes there's little tweaks folks are working on. Sometimes for some folks, it's a real shift in their practices, you know, and that's like shifting how you know, get dressed in the morning, shifting how you brush your teeth. I'm not sure what the analogy is, but it's something, it's something that's like really changing something you do every single day, you know, that is, you know, part of your hard part of your work. And so it can be expressed in a few words.
Yeah.
But it's most important work, and it's challenging work for all involved, and it's something that, you know, we've started a couple years ago, and we're gonna keep on doing.
Can I ask a question before we end? You had mentioned Desmos,
Yep.
the new math curriculum. Has that been purchased yet? Or we just
In the
piloting?
process that we piloted through, we piloted Intimel, it was Intimel,
It
and
was
then,
Intimel.
and Desmos, but
Yes, it was.
yeah, we piloted 2 programs. And just very recently, the committee voted on, adopting Amplified Desmos. And so they are continuing with that, access to the curriculum for this year for the pilot, and we are in the process of getting quotes for next year. And it will be ordered before the end of this. Actually, very soon.
All right, we move on to the high school.
Yes.
Well, just to say, Mr. Tice is gonna leave us, I believe, is it flute recital?
Yes, my daughter has an all-city 5th grade concert.
There we go.
Which is
There you
like,
go.
so
Even in principles, we support work-life balance. And so, anyway, thank you very much, Mike.
yeah, no, thank
Enjoy the
you.
concert.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
that, thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you. Thanks. Me too.
Thank you.
All right,
From Mike or Mike?
I usually go back on, don't have much work, but everybody calls me, so.
It's a little bit more formal.
Thank you, everyone, for having me here today. It's appropriate, following O'Malley as one of the things you'll see in here is some of the work on that transition from 8th to 9th grade. I think there are a few other O'Malley connections in the slide presentation, if I remember correctly. So we're going through the same things. My favorite picture ever. I love this picture. I've used it a few times. This is where we're headed, right? That moment where they throw the hats into the air, go over our areas of strengths, our priorities that we're working on right now, and then we'll move into what we're going to do to further strengthen our priorities in the coming year. All right, so some of our strengths, these are taken from our most recent NEASC evaluation. So, right, I turned there, this is outside folks telling us what our strengths are. But we agree that, having a positive school culture, we have a safe, positive, respectful, and inclusive culture where equity and diversity are promoted and honored throughout the school. That was something we were recognized for having. Faculty, staff relationships with students. We've done a lot of work in this area. At a high school without that house model and so on, this can be challenging. So we're very intentional about making sure students have trusted adults. Something we check in on. We ask the students about trusted adults through surveys. We reach out to students who may be identifying that they don't yet have a trusted adult. We see a tremendous increase in trusted adults from 9th to 12th grade. And we want to do better in this area as well, but it is identified as a strength for our school. We offer wide range of support for students, particularly again, over the last several years, being very intentional about a tiered system of intervention where all students are receiving tier 1 support, then students who need an intervention to return to a tier 1 level of support have tier 2 supports. The school committee has been very helpful in allowing us to maintain some positions that allow us to have, particularly in math, English, biology, and then through executive functioning, we have 4 different kinds of tier 2 support for non-special education students, right? That hopefully can also help keep those special education numbers where they are. And that's taken, an investment through the budget. We were cited also for having meaningful and relevant learning throughout our building. The students have an opportunity to apply their knowledge, learn some things, and then do something with that, build something, create something. As you can see here is an example of that in the picture, right? That was a project that came about through our visual arts program, a senior honors student who created this mural that's now a gift to the school. It's one example of the meaningful learning that happens. We got more strengths, two more strengths that were identified by NEASC in their most recent visit. You heard Mike talk about the importance of the professional learning culture. That's also something important to us at Gloucester High School. Unlike many high schools, we have embedded time during the day for departments to meet and collaborate. First, over the past years on curriculum, as you heard Mike talk about that too, and now the focus is on data and instructional practices primarily. So, you know, that's one thing we've been able to build in. We also, like Mike talked about, his vertical teams. We have a different way of using half of our 20 hours that you asked about, Melissa. We have faculty meetings, and then we also have our school growth teams. So teachers select one area, for instance, English learner education, tier 2 interventions, racial equity and inclusion, and those teachers sort of lead that work in the school with those after school hours. It becomes a little bit more meaningful than the faculty meeting all the time that everybody's. So, and then in addition to the professional culture, we've had great community support that I mentioned earlier. So large number of businesses, higher ed partnerships, school committee, and local governing bodies that support our work at the school. That was something else that NEASC recognized. As you know, with the improvements in our CBTE program, we've had even more of these kinds of community connections than we've had in the past. Thanks to the work of Brenda Waslick and the team of teachers at CBTE. Two new things that I wanted to recognize here that are new post NEASC is our commitment to improving attendance. So although we're not there yet fully in reducing chronic absenteeism to where we want to be, we did exceed the goal DESE set for reducing chronic absenteeism, 5.1% there. And that's taken a lot of intentional work, teams over the summer. It's taken work of our attendance teams that you've heard about, I think, across all the schools. We're stealing O'Malley's idea and having that competition among classes coming up in next semester. Ms. Alves spoke with the folks at O'Malley about, and we adjusted it. It's got to look different at the high school, but we're doing something similar. We'll be talking about talking to our 9th and 10th graders tomorrow during homeroom about getting that going. So lots of different things happening for to address chronic absenteeism. We've had some successes. We're going to have more success this year, including the attendance contracts I mentioned, and then helping students graduate. Right, another thing we were recognized by in the most recent DESE accountability report was improving our graduation rate, reducing dropouts, and through the alternative programs like RAISE and those tiered interventions I've been talking about. And a new intervention this year that takes place right where we are when the students are after school, where students receive some help recovering credit that they need to graduate, is another thing that we're doing to help students graduate.
Can you tell me what that looks like? So they come in after school or during?
After school, yeah, so this is after school. It's an intervention for students who failed classes, that all 9 through 12, it starts. They're assigned with a contract to make up recoup some work from the previous term. And they work with, we have a couple staff members who used to do a detention after school, and then instead we're assigning these, the detention is done with one of the 2 assistant principals downstairs. So that freed up some funds for us to, instead of having them babysit kids in detention after school, they're giving support to students.
So this is teachers, programmers?
Teachers, yeah, 2 teachers, yep. And yep, and then we get the information from the teacher about the work that needs to be made up in a spreadsheet. We know exactly who's supposed to be here. Administrators and counselors, we meet with the kids ahead of time so they know our expectations. We each take a handful of kids that we're going to be following up with on helping them basically stay, in high school, because we accumulate, the difference, as we've heard about many times, is students accumulate credit at high school to pass from grade to grade. And it can happen after term 1 or term 2 that you're so far behind that, why would I bother with terms 3 and 4? This intervention is to help with that.
Do they meet every day or how?
No, it's Monday, Monday and Wednesday.
Okay.
And then we have Thursday as a day if you're absent Monday, and Wednesday you make it up on Thursday. Yep.
Is it the same teachers or do they rotate?
They rotate, yep, they rotate, so they, yeah, they get a little break, yep, on those days. And that's, yeah, we had a good launch, and now we have some improvements as we start something we want to do. And next week we'll be getting launched on the term 3 intervention.
And those meetings last about an hour? or so?
About an hour, exactly, yep. Exactly, and then once they're kind of caught up enough, then they're released back, they don't have to stay.
That's a great one.
So we're working on that and working on the accountability part of it, and teachers, we've seen some good things happen, some good grade change forms coming. So those are our strengths in the school, our priorities. I've organized the priorities a little bit differently this year than I have in the previous 5 or 6 years, but they're the same priorities. I just want to highlight a different part of them because the work is changing. So where you've seen priority 1 in the past has been brain-based, culturally responsive instruction. Now we're pulling that apart a little bit, and because our professional development and our data meetings and our PLC meetings, we have one group really focused on communication and higher order thinking. That's your reading, writing, listening, speaking, and how students apply that to real world problems and to create them creatively. So our PD is really geared towards here. We're talking about our English learner teachers. We're talking about our English class teachers. We're talking about our history teachers doing this work together. And then our other priority is on our science, technology, engineering, and math teachers, the skills, concepts, and problem solving that they're doing. And so they have some common PD pulled out to focus on what does brain-based, culturally responsive teaching look like in science and math, and in our CBTE programs. In the past, I've then had as the second priority, I've only had 2 in the past. The second priority has been social emotional learning, but here I wanted to focus more on the goal of that social emotional learning, which is those kids throwing the hats up at graduation, right? It's the post-secondary transition. And so that's why students really need to learn those social emotional skills so we can really use them in the workplace. And our guidance counselors, our community partners, and then through the homeroom program, our teachers are focused on helping with renewed commitment to this post-secondary transition. So same goals, but a little bit more of an emphasis on differentiating communication and higher order thinking, STEM skills, concepts of problem solving, and everyone contributing to the transition out of high school.
I probably missed it, James, but brain-based, culturally responsive instructional practices, is that new? Is it?
Yeah, it's something I've talked about before. I usually, Bill, talk about the Ignite, Chunk, Chew, Review instructional model, right? You come into class, teacher ignites the learning for the day, right? Because you're coming from wherever, you're coming from lunch, coming from home, you're coming from Spanish, and I need to get you excited about engineering.
Right.
So ignite the learning. Then I'm gonna chunk the material. Kids and adults too can't listen for all that long or read all that long without doing something. So 12 to 15 minutes of the chunk of the learning. Then the chewing is the active processing. So now as a learner, I've got to do something with what I learned, the same way you all ask questions to process what, that's the thing adults do, right? Ask questions to process a presentation like this. So students do that kind of processing. And then the review is the check-in from the teacher with where are you in your learning? So that's going to teach me what I need to do tomorrow, right? Where might the students have missed something? Some students are ready to move on. Some need to go back the next day to be reaffirmed with somebody. So that's the brain-based culturally responsive model in a nutshell.
Yeah.
There's also 200-page books. And,
I don't need those.
You don't need those, yeah. I read those so I can distill it down.
I appreciate you.
Sure. All right,
Online.
so our priorities, what they look like and what we're already doing. What I just said, the brain-based instruction, Ignite Juncture Review, with an emphasis on students using that for analysis, for evaluating what they're learning, and for creating things based on what they've learned. It's a real focus this year. What do teachers do when students are creating? Right. One thing, we know what teachers do when they're in front of a room instructing, but now I've handed the learning over to you, small group, individual, and now I have classroom full of people in different places. So I might do some homogeneous grouping, right, to talk about a particular issue with students working on this, students working on that. This takes a whole other level of skill. And Ben talked earlier about the complexity of tiered 1 intervention. This is the thing we're focused on this year that we've thought that, wow, the difference between when we're at our best and when we need to do some work is largely around what are we doing when students are actively processing. So it's really exciting work, working with teachers, program leaders, everybody on that this year. To help with that, we've, with Amy's help, a lot of great help this year, subject-specific professional development. So it's, if my focus is on communication, we've got a history teacher, got an English teacher, got the world language teachers, we're getting executive functioning PD that's focused on our discipline. We're getting the sheltered English immersion discipline, PD that looks what it looks like in my discipline. And also what I was just speaking about, the active process, because it looks different in science and math classes than it does in English social studies. And the more higher we go, the more those differences are. So this has been exciting work this year too, is the differentiated work that we were just talking about before the meeting started, what we're doing on February 6th. We're excited, as you know, we're doing Star 360 now too. We had our own thing, we're doing the Admentum product, but super helpful, and it's exciting work to feed, on the one hand, the STEM teachers and then the English social studies teachers using this data. So I've got history teachers who have as their goal, their student learning goal for this year, they're using the literacy standard. Right, so they're as focused on literacy and writing and reading than the English teachers, right? They're together on this, and that Star 360 helps. And as I mentioned before, we've got the tiered interventions.
And on the Star 360, remind me again, how long does that test quiz take?
So it's really, that's one of the things we like about it.
2-minute thing or?
Like 20 minutes, like 20 to 30, and if the more you go, the longer it goes.
Yeah.
But it's way faster than the one we had, which would take a full block.
And you get a good data.
You get really good data. We're ready to do number 2 next week. We'll be launching the math and the English.
You do it 3 times a year?
3 times a year, exactly. Yep. So you can see math is very similar, right? Everything's sort of paralleled from English down to math. In terms of what we're working on this year. It's just that I wanted to emphasize that we're differentiating the work that different teachers are doing in a way that in the past, we were just learning these kinds of things. We had everybody doing the learning together. And then what we're working on for preparation and support of the post-secondary transition, we've got targeted professional development for also all the visual arts, performing arts, practical arts, business, and CBTE folks. We're really helping students hone and deepen some of the work they're going to be doing after high school. We've got targeted professional development for those folks as well. We've got a comprehensive school counseling curriculum that we're implementing right now. In fact, the counselors were in history classes today, 10th grade history classes today, doing some interest inventories that will help prepare them for looking at colleges and institutes for trade training. Our community partnerships have been really strong in this area, getting help from GEF and Wellspring, Chamber of Commerce, and from the program advisory committees for CBTE on the counseling curriculum. We're working to sustain our dropout prevention and graduation support pathways because of funding and things. It's shift a little bit every year. We want to keep things going. That's our attendance team and the after-school failure intervention I was talking about, RAISE program, and then the Anchor and Gap program for students with disabilities.
Can I ask you, that program, is it linked with the Youth in Need program at all? No, Youth in Need?
Unity.
Unity.
Yes,
sorry.
Ray's
Yeah,
takes
Unity,
place
thank you,
at-
young kids.
At Unity,
Yeah.
yep, yep, Ray's takes place in their space,
Okay.
and our students have access to Unity programming.
I
Yes.
don't know why I always say Unity, but
Yeah, it's the same, it's the same. It's exactly
it's the
same.
same program.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's the same. Yeah, Unity does other things other than Raise, but Raise
So the
is,
students can get both?
yes,
So they
students.
get.
The
English
Raise
and then
part
they
is
learn-
our like they do our online curriculum. And then, why, as participants with Unity, they get access to all sorts of groups and mental health support.
And do we know if Unity's continuing to get grants this year?
I don't know.
I
You're
know.
running for this year,
Yeah,
but because it's grant based and because, so one of the, we already solved this for this year.
yeah.
But you may remember we reported earlier in the year, Amy Cam did that, because we lowered our dropout rate so much,
Oh,
we were
Yeah.
then not eligible for the funding that supported raised last year. So we found this out at the beginning of this school year and had to scramble. We were because we were successful, it took the money away. Whatever. So we scrambled to get grant funding for this year, had to
Yeah.
modify it some, but we're in the same position for looking for funding for next year. Yeah, it's
That's
one of the, what I think what you're seeing, and James high school always does, is, we don't approach challenges from one angle, whether it's chronic absenteeism or graduation, or dropouts, you have to have a few different pieces, that are all, working up to the same end. And so of all the things that we're working on in terms of dropout prevention, the RAISE program is probably one of the most successful.
Yeah.
So we really wanna, it's something we need to continue sometime.
And then we're also, this area, the preparation for the post-secondary transition, working toward, expanding our CTE programs. So we're taking steps in that direction this year, as well as strengthening the programs we have. So looking ahead, to further strengthen our programs, we're gonna need to continue refining, getting better and better and better at our brain-based instruction. That's in both priority area 1 and 2. We're gonna get better and better at using that STAR 360 data to inform decision-making about curriculum, about placements, about interventions. We're gonna get better and better about the subject-specific professional development and keep doing that. And we'll learn from this year what things do we need to do for next year. And then get better and better at the effectiveness of our tiered interventions, the tier 2 and tier 3 interventions. We know that we're looking to, as we move forward, you'd asked about the multilingual learners, the English learners previous. And in the high school level, we know that for those students with disruptions to their learning that Mike talked about, right? That we need, we need another level of literacy tutoring for newcomers and for that slight students, those are the students with interrupted learning. And we know that when somebody shows up at 17 years old and has interrupted learning, we've only got a couple of years to get them caught up and into a place where they learn English and they're able to get some skills and graduate. So that's a priority really moving forward, is to do that better and better, because there's an urgency at the high school level about that.
So James, to that, and maybe to the superintendent as well, I mean, the governor announced she's doing a literacy program, that they want to fund a literacy program into next year's budget.
And younger grades.
Is it
K
younger?
to 3, pre-K to 3.
It's only pre-K to 3.
Yeah, so it's, she's really pushing, and this makes a lot of sense, just, literacy about grade 3. Yeah, that's what that's about. Not doing, right yet.
Thank you.
And then we're looking to, again, to support students, we're looking to allocate our resources so that we can prioritize more co-teaching in 9th and 10th grade. English and history for priority 1, and for math and biology in priority area 2. Right, and that's not, looking for more resources. That's something that we're looking at doing right now with our special education meetings now. Setting, the transition from 8th to 9th grade will help us. Those IEP meetings will help us get more co-teaching in 9th and 10th grade for English, history, math, and biology.
So the co-teaching model is the subject teacher and the special education teacher?
Yes, exactly. That's right. Yep. And we find that getting the support where the learning is happening is the best way to go from the chunk over to the chew, right? If the student is gonna be doing some math problems, having the co-teaching right there where they just got the math learning is better than having the support in another block in the day, right? And that's what we're looking to make happen. Doing a lot of work on that. And then priority area 2, we got an extra point down there. We're launching a new AP course, AP Pre-Calculus. It just got offered by the College Board. This is gonna be great, not only for students who have a STEM path, but for students who have a humanities pathway, right? They won't necessarily get to calculus as a senior, but they can still get college credit by taking pre-calculus as a senior, which is gonna be great for, you know, the students who are, you know, gonna be a psychology major, gonna go into teaching and all that kind of thing. They'll still be able to have AP credit from pre-calculus and apply that to school, which is, we're really excited about that. I gotta give credit to the program leader, Ali Walsh, and to Dave DePietro, our AP coordinator, who's also a math teacher. They jumped, you know, when I noticed that was coming up, they jumped right on it. And have done the research, attended the seminars, and
Did we have to hire for that or?
nope, we're able to do, yeah, we figured out how to do it with the sections that we have. We'll just be allocating a section that we now have for honors
Okay.
to AP. But it's yeah, win-win all around. That's exciting to announce. Our further strengthening of our priorities in you know, the third area. We're continuing to target professional development in the fine arts, the business, and CTE to help support skills needed for the post-secondary transition. We'll be refining that comprehensive guidance curriculum, the school counseling curriculum that helps with the post-secondary transition. In other words, every time they do a presentation, department is going back and making tweaks, making adjustments to improve it for next year. And then increasing support for student planning, skill building, and follow through with our community partners. We've got some exciting ideas, not ready to be discussed yet here, but we're working on with our community partners about ways they can help us, help kids through our school counseling program. So we're really excited to be bringing on and really what's working and how do we do more of what's working is what that point's about.
So James, in CBT, isn't this the year where you intend to move forward with the medical assistant program?
We have that as we're doing the steps right now to get there. Yeah, we're doing the steps. So we want to be ready to do that if we can. For next year.
For fiscal year 2025.
That's what we're working towards. Yeah.
So has there been, not just for financial impact, but have there been discussions on how to do the introductory program
Yes.
to all the
Yeah,
ninth
we're doing-
graders and the scheduling and all that?
Yep, we're doing both at the same time.
Doing
So
it
we got a
all
parallel track. One
Okay.
group, folks are working on, well, Brenda's in everything and I'm in everything, but focusing more on getting the medical assistant ready and building the program advisory committee and going through there's a hiring, there's a vetting process the state has. We go step by step and we work with the state on that. And then we're also have Brenda and I are leading the teachers in what would an exploratory look like. They visited other schools that have exploratories, so our design is unique to our school, but is based on what a couple other schools have been successful doing.
So space has been identified?
Yes,
Technical
yep,
capital
Yep.
projects needed?
yes, right, and all that is may happen on the timeline we want, may take a longer timeline, but we're moving forward to
Okay.
support to us.
Thank
And then this last point is about continuing to refine and expand the graduation and post-secondary pathways, particularly for our most vulnerable learners. As Ben mentioned, we're always looking for ways of supporting our most vulnerable learners and helping them get what they need to graduate and succeed after high school. That's it.
That was very good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you, Harry.
Can you close this, Sharon?
What's that?
Can you just close the presentation?
So
So for this conversation.
it's the first time I've successfully shared at a school committee meeting.
Can that be shared with us?
Yeah, yeah. Just after me, absolutely. Always is, just like last week.
But tonight or
I'll
tomorrow?
get it to you tonight. As long as Mr. Cook shares with me.
I did.
Oh, you did. Yes,
Thank
yes.
I didn't get your, text.
I like to go back and review it, that's
Of
why.
course,
like, I just-
100%. We'll also, and then Stephanie will get it up on the website tomorrow, I'll publish this evening.
Excellent.
Questions from Mr. Cook?
Good stuff, a lot of detail there.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah, I love to be able to present. I love the questions too. That helps us, know what's important to the committee and to keep working.
I just got some feedback from my little person in my life that was lost in high school. I asked, how's school going? Wait.
That's great. I love it.
In 10 years.
All right.
Yeah.
That's the best answer. Great five-letter answer. I love
That's a
it.
good answer, so
Yeah.
whatever you're doing down there, keep
All
it
right,
up.
Keep
please.
doing it. No, that's
Much
great to hear.
appreciation.
Thank you.
I just hope the communities are seeing the common threads, particularly tonight, obviously, in middle and high school, really working on instruction in a variety of ways, working on supporting our learners, engaging them, deeply in curriculum and learning. And then really making sure kids are staying in school or engaged and staying in school, from a lot of opportunity. But I just, that's the work. And it continues and we'll keep, moving forward on it and it's really building. I think one great example is just the work that the counseling department here at the high school is doing, that's really shifted over the last couple of years, quite quickly, actually, in terms of their engagement, more engagement with the, rest of, classes, more engagement through class, through homeroom, but then also really thinking more broadly about, diverse pathways after graduation of parent kids. So just a lot of progress. That's one small example. Progress we're making and we're going to stick to.
And I just want to acknowledge the commitment to, not doing 18 things too, because we know the core stuff is so important until we know we're on a, positive path of improved outcomes and reflecting on kind of teacher adopt, as you say, like they're learning new things and how are we evaluating whether it really is becoming part of and being effective, so that kind of feedback loop as we're deep into it is really important because
Yeah.
it's the important work.
Thank you. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's well said. Thank you.
So that's all for tonight. The next time we talk about budget in depth will be February 14th. We'll have the first budget presentation.
I did notice we're taking the month of March, there's no budget meetings in March, it looks like. I mean, that's.
Typically not. That's sort of when, we need to take time from, so we haven't gotten the state numbers yet. That should be this week. We haven't gotten the city numbers. That should happen, not sure when that should happen. It's up in the air. And then really it's hard to make firm decisions until we know those two numbers. We will, on the 14th, come forth with what we expect, our ask, essentially what we need to run the schools at the level we need to run the schools. The budget number that's necessary, but then that'll may shift depending on the news from the state of the city is. After that, yes, after that, yeah. The need doesn't change. What is possible to be funded may change. Therefore, that may adjust a lot of things.
I think one example is O'Malley Academy, just how integral that is as we come to that whole experience of learning, community and things. It's not just after school activities, it's like really purposeful and fun.
Yeah.
Um,
No, I think that's that's a really good example. One of the things, we've been learning our work in the state is that they need us to show that we're taking on some of that. They've never given us a real prescribed timeline or amount, but that effort is fairly meaningful to them.
Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Vote carries. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.